Mr. President, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, friends, and family members, it is my honor to welcome you on behalf of the 364,000 members of Fraternal Order of Police, once again, to the 41st Annual National Peace Officers Memorial Service. On this solemn day of remembrance, we come together, as we have done each year for more than 4 decades, to honor the ultimate sacrifice of 563 brave men and women who gave their last full measure of devotion in the service of others during 2022. Today across America, you'll find communities that are struggling in wake of 2 of the most challenging years in recent history. In every one of these communities, you will also find selfless men and women so dedicated that they took an oath to preserving law and order in towns and cities, large and small, all across this great land. Daily, we're called upon to stand guard on a line between order and chaos so that our communities can have a sense of safety and security. It is important to all of us of who we serve that they have confidence in knowing that when someone calls for help, someone is coming running. We wear a badge and uniform and show up every day despite the imminent dangers that may await us. Our dedication and love for those that we serve prevails every single day. Law enforcement officers are ordinary people who answered a higher calling of public service, and at times we're called upon to do some extraordinary things. But we're not superheroes, nor do we possess superpowers. And while we strive for excellence, we've yet to achieve perfection. These challenging times have tested our character, yet we have not backed down. It has tested our perseverance, yet we still stand strong. And it has tested our profession, yet we are still honorable and strong. And even on our worst day, when the thin blue line may bend at times, but it's never broken, for we are America's first responders, and it is not in our DNA to allow our communities to be unprotected. And when the unthinkable happens, when a peace officer falls in the service of others, we as a free society owe it to them to honor their memory. To our surviving families, both blood and blue, there's simply no way to compensate you for your great loss. We hope that by expressing our honor and respect for your loved ones brings you comfort. I encourage you to look around right now. In every direction, you will see men and women from law enforcement from yesterday and today. And this is a reminder that while you may not always see us, we are always with you. As you continue your journey of healing, draw strength from one another and your law enforcement family. Reflect and be proud of the compassion that your loved one had for your communities. As president of the National Fraternal Order of Police, I have the honor of standing before you today representing law enforcement officers across this great nation to say that we stand with you. We mourn with each of you, and we have respect for your heroes' courage and sacrifice. Lest we never forget the 563 officers that we will remember here today. Many were lost after a long, valiant fight with illness, while others never had the opportunity to return home to their families at the end of their shifts. Lest we never forget their families and their sacrifice. Lest we never forget those who have fallen from the stresses of carrying such a heavy burden upon their shoulders. Lest we never forget those brave officers that are severely injured in protection of others. My friends, it is our responsibility and obligation to ensure that their sacrifice is never forgotten. We must never let our surviving families walk alone. May our heroes rest in peace. May God bless the families they leave behind. May God watch over the officers protecting their streets and communities today, and may God bless the United States of America. It is now my honor to once again welcome our keynote speaker for the 41st Annual National Peace Officers Memorial Service, Joseph R. Biden, Jr., the President of the United States. Since the formation of this memorial service, every president has attended this memorial service to our fallen, and we thank you, Mr. President, for your presence here today. On this day, surviving families and loved ones come together to share grief and draw strength from one another, certain in the knowledge that their sacrifice will live on in the lives of all of us. President Biden has been with us here at this service on many occasions during his time in the United States Senate as Vice President and last year as President. We are grateful for your leadership in making our officers, giving our officers the tools they need and resources in order to make our community safe. Brothers and sisters, our surviving families and distinguished guests, please join me in welcoming the President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden.
President Yost, Auxiliary President Henne, Auxiliary President Lehman, and Director and good friend Jimmy Pasco. We've worked together a long time. Thank you for inviting me to join you today and for the service you've extended to this nation. I'd also like to thank the Attorney General, Attorney General Garland, Attorney General Gupta, Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas, and the Director of the FBI and Secret Service, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, U.S. Marshal Service, U.S. Capitol Police, all for being here, but for your leadership. We're also joined by my longtime friends, Senator Patrick Leahy and House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer. Before I begin, let me say a word about yesterday's mass shooting in Buffalo, New York. A lone gunman, armed with weapons of war and hate-filled soul, shot and killed 10 innocent people in cold blood at a grocery store on Saturday afternoon. Jill and I, like all of you, pray for the victims and their families and a devastated community. I've been receiving updates from my team in the White House that's in close contact with the Justice Department. We're still gathering the facts, while already the Justice Department has stated publicly that it is investigating the matter as a hate crime, racially motivated act of white supremacy and violent extremism. As they do, we must all work together to address the hate that remains a stain on the soul of America. The hearts are heavy once again, but a resolve must never, ever waver. No one understands this more than the people sitting in front of me. Moms, dads, children, family members, about how those folks in Buffalo feel today when they got the call. They're pulled into us as if you got pulled into a black hole in your chest. There's no way out. Jill and I know, we know no memorial, no gestures can fill the void in the hearts they have now, or that you who've lost someone feel as well. Being here today and hearing the name of your husband, wife, father, mother, son, daughter, brother, sister, brings it all back as if you got that phone call 10 minutes ago. The American people, we owe you. You know, you sit down in the street, your normal families, all neighbors, and every day you worry. And you worried you'd get that phone call as they pinned on that shield. And now you look at an empty chair. Although I didn't personally know your husbands, wives, sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, I knew them. They were the first ones to run in to help when everyone else ran away when we were kids, when we were young men and women. Even in grade school, they'd jump in when someone else was threatened or being bullied, regardless of the odds. Think about it. It's part of their DNA. They didn't think about it in terms of serving, protecting, and defending, but that's what they did. They served even before they put on that shield. They protected, and they were there. Being a police officer is not just what they did, it's who they were. I was telling the president of this organization, I grew up in a neighborhood where he became a cop, a firefighter, or a priest. I wasn't qualified for any of them, so here I am. But all kidding aside, we expect so much from our law enforcement officers today. This is a different world we're in. Just in the last several years, it's so much more complicated. The job is complicated. Yet we expect so much more of all of you. We expect you to be drug counselors for the 100,000 overdose deaths that took place this year. 100,000. We expect you to counsel those who speak to a couple in the midst of a violent confrontation, a husband and wife, man and woman. So many of you are literally and figuratively get caught in a crossfire. You're not trained psychologists. You're law enforcement officers. We expect you to be everything. We expect everything of you. Being a cop today is a heck of a lot harder than it's ever been. COVID-19, 1 million deaths in America, leaving behind, the estimates indicate, 9 significant family members or other. We'll also look at that empty chair at the kitchen table. So many kids left behind because of COVID, schools closing down. You're engaged in longer shifts. The strain and stress of it all is why I continue to be so committed to do more, do better, to keep you safe, to keep our community safe, and to build trust and respect that everyone deserves, particularly all of you. We should focus on and fund the things we know that work, like crime prevention and community policing. Not 1 cop in a car, but 2 walking the street. Cops who walk the beat, who know the neighborhood, who can restore trust and safety. Folks, the answer is not to abandon the streets. It's not to choose between safety and equal justice. And we should agree, it's not to defund the police. It's to fund the police. Fund them with the resources, the training they need to protect our communities and themselves and restore trust among the police and the people. My dad used to say, when someone would say, "Let me tell you what I value, Joe," he'd look at them and say, "Don't tell me what you..." My dad was a well-read, high school educated man who was a graceful man. He said, "Don't tell me what you value. Show me your budget, and I will tell you what you value." Well, here's what I value. As soon as I came to office, we inherited a raging pandemic with only 2 million people vaccinated. We needed to rebuild our economy and restore public safety. We understood the risks that communities could face with rising violence during the pandemic, and at a time when state and local budgets were shrinking because they didn't have the tax base. They're having to lay off cops, firefighters, teachers. They're under tremendous strain. So we made sure we passed a thing called the American Rescue Plan, providing historic $350 billion directly to the cities and counties and states and tribes so they didn't have to lay off law enforcement. They could keep the cops on the job and fight to keep communities safe. And it's working. More than 300 communities, from big cities to small towns, are using more than $10 billion. The American Rescue Plan funds for violence prevention and public safety this year. Building new police training facilities. Recruiting, which is getting harder. Hiring and giving policemen a raise. Partnering with federal, state, and local community groups to reduce gun violence. Investing in community interventions that use trusted community members to work directly with people who are most likely to commit gun crimes or become the victims of gun crimes, and intervene before it's too late. My mother said, "Of everything bad, something good will come if you look hard enough for it." We're looking hard to determine why and what we can do to prevent that law enforcement officer being put in the middle. I'm encouraging every mayor, governor to use the American resource money they have, and they have it now. You spend it now. This summer, when crime historically spikes, and this rescue funding for police is part of a comprehensive strategy to combat violence in America. I've laid out this plan to all the police agencies, and they're taking a good look at it. With my budget last year, we increased funding for state and local law enforcement by not almost, 29%. That included significant investments in community-oriented police services, the COPS program designed to build legitimacy and trust in communities, to address violent crime, to combat hate and extremism. My budget for the next year doubles the investment in community policing, $573 million, the most in over a decade. And on top of that, it includes $30 billion in new mandatory investments in law enforcement and crime prevention. During my State of the Union address, I announced what I called a unity agenda that brings the country together to address the big challenges we face. And one of those included ending the opioid epidemic and addressing the mental health crisis. So many, young and old, because of this pandemic, need help. And having a problem, a mental problem, is no different than breaking your arm or your leg. You need to invest in systems to provide adequate health care, counseling, drug treatment, prevention, housing, education, other social services to those who need it most. Right now, in most places, you serve your time in prison, you get a bus ticket and $25, and you end up under the same bridge you got arrested under the first time. They should have access to education and housing. Give them a chance to move beyond where they were. I'm committed to investing in mental health services, so we have more school counselors, psychologists, and social workers working alongside you. At the same time, we have to do more to protect our officers' mental health and emotional well-being. Suicide was the second highest cause of death with law enforcement officers in 2021, surpassed only by COVID-19. Last November, I signed laws that extended critical peer counseling, mental health resources for officers, expanded eligibility for benefits, first responders who are disabled in the line of duty. It's not unusual. We were talking briefly about the impact on the post-traumatic stress. How many police officers have multiple times been put in line and had to do things that they didn't have to think they'd have to do? We recognize that with our military, more people continue to die from post-traumatic stress at home than die in any wars that are going on now. 20 a week. It matters. We face up to it and help these folks, everyone. There are other areas we need to continue to work on together. 40% of all the calls that result in an officer's death are calls to intervene in a domestic violence dispute. Let me say it again. 40%. We expect officers to have degrees in psychology. We expect them to have things that are beyond the capacity of any PhD or doc or anybody else. That's why it's so important to get reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act, providing critical resources for law enforcement. And I want to acknowledge law enforcement's constructive role in trying to reach an agreement on meaningful policing legislation in Congress. We haven't gotten there yet. We must get there to strengthen public trust and public safety. 2021 was one of the strongest years on record when it comes to federal support delivered to state and local law enforcement. While these are important steps, there's much more work to be done. I'm committed to being your partner, as I always have. Let me close with this. Jill and I know how it is when there's a memorial service for our son who won the Bronze Star and Conspicuous Service Medal in Iraq. We're proud, but we're also, it's bittersweet because you remember everything. I want to thank the families that are here. It really takes courage to show up because everything comes back. Everything comes back. A short walk from here at the National Law Enforcement Memorial, there's a quote engraved on the wall. And the quote goes, "It's not how these officers died that made them heroes. It's how they lived." To the families, children, now we have some idea how hard it is. But I promise you, the day will come when the memory of your loved one, you open that closet door and you smell the scent, or you go by that park you used to walk in, or you hear that song. The day will come when it will bring a smile to your lips before it brings a tear to your eyes. And through your pain and your will to find a purpose worthy of how they lived, you'll get through it. But there's nothing easy about it. Our hope and prayer is that we as a nation find that purpose as well. May the souls of those who you loved and those with whom you served rest in peace and raise in glory. May God bless you all, and may God protect our police and our troops. God bless you.